Last October, School District 43 School Board Trustee Jennifer Blatherwick was elected to the position of MLA for Coquitlam-Maillardville. On Saturday, February 22nd, there will be a by-election to fill the vacated seat. Tri-Cities Community TV reached out to all the candidates running for this position and offered them an opportunity to present their platform. As a result, Tri-Cities Community TV presents the following interview.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Nancy Furness, and this is We've Got Issues. We'd like to thank the Coquitlam City Centre Library for giving us space to carry out these interviews. And before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of Coquitlam First Nation. So we thank the Coquitlam people who continue to live on the lands and to care for the lands and the waters and all that lies above and below. Today we're joined by Nash Milani, who is taking a run for School District 43 School Trustee. So thanks so much for joining us today, Nash.
Thank you for having me, Nancy.
Can you start us off by telling us what inspired you to run for School Trustee?
Yeah, well, thank you for the opening question. I think it's fair to say that this by-election kind of caught us all a little bit by surprise, but it's a result of last fall's provincial election where one of the serving trustees resigned their seat to join the NDP provincial government. So this really snuck up on a lot of us, and I've seen so many young people getting elected as of the last election in 2022 in this province that I looked to the board in Coquitlam and the board that I went to school with, SD43, and didn't see any young people, no representation for people my age. And I kind of felt like we were falling behind in that, and I wanted to put my name in the ring just to give an opportunity for some young people to have a candidate that they might relate to a little bit more. And having watched my younger siblings, being the eldest of three, go through the same system that I did and all of the changes that have happened since things like COVID, it's made me want to get more involved, and that's really a big part of why I'm running today.
Well, thank you for that. And I think you bring up a really good point that from a perspective of somebody who's recently come through the school system and who has, siblings that are still there, you bring a really good perspective and kind of a new perspective to the school trustee. Can you tell us a little bit about what you think your main role as school trustee would be?
I believe that my main role as trustee would be to liaison between the stakeholders and particularly students and teachers and relay those concerns to the province and to the greater bodies that govern the school boards and such. And the elephant in the room is that I am like 20 some odd years younger than the current school board at least. And that's to me quite startling. The average age for a school board in the country is over 50. And just knowing that we've sort of skipped over a generation of leaders is very curious to me, and I kind of know that it's hard for young people to get involved in these races, and so that's certainly a big part of this. And so being able to communicate concerns of the community that I might understand better, having been through it more recently, I think is to my advantage. And since I can relate to those concerns a bit more, I think that's a big part of what I can bring to the table.
Yeah, so I think you're bringing some diversity in age for sure, bringing a new perspective and bringing your experiences. Can tell us a little bit more about some of the skills and experiences that you think might benefit you on as a school trustee?
Well, I have some volunteering experience with some local organizations, particularly BCAEA. I help with their yearly events, and we raise money for groups like Community. So that's been a big part of seeing the way that young people have been handled by the systems in place, and knowing that there should be more opportunities for them to voice concerns, because it's so easy for those people that recently graduate or even that are getting older in the school system to just feel disillusioned with the fact that there might not be someone that can connect to their concerns. I want to sort of take an approach where students deserve to have someone in their life that is not maybe another not another parental figure, but someone that they can still confide in and feel those concerns are being heard.
Right. No, I think that's a lot of value added there. So I want to talk a little bit about responsibilities. So one of the responsibilities of a school trustee is to provide leadership to the district in maintaining its high student achievement and graduation rates by ensuring quality opportunities for all students of all ages. So can you provide some examples of what you might consider to be quality learning experiences?
That is quite the question. I'm going to try and pivot a little bit here and go a little bit bigger picture, because I think that everyone's learning journey is something that's personal to them. And I've seen the systems that have allowed me to graduate and my siblings and all my friends to get through the system. And I think that the school district is improving in the ways that it is providing those opportunities for young people. The increase in like student services and transition planning teachers has definitely been a boon. But to sort of pivot, I guess, I think that the biggest thing that holds young people back is tuition and the costs related to education. So I know this isn't specifically an SD43 sort of issue, but the best thing that I can propose to further the opportunities for young people to get those higher quality learning things is that I just feel like tuition should be like free. It should be paid for by the government. Post-secondary should be free across the board for Canadian citizens. That is definitely a lot bigger than just here, but that's the biggest
Well, it is,
learning
but
opportunity.
it's a continuation of where you go from here, right? And accessibility and opportunity, all the potential that we don't realize because of those barriers that are in place.
Yeah.
And I think if we look to some of the Scandinavian countries where post-secondary education is free, it benefits everyone, right? Even if somebody goes for first-year university and gets that basic first year in, it benefits us in so many ways.
Yep.
So I couldn't agree with you more on that.
The fear of the unknown and the financial burdens associated, that like those are the things that keep young people away. Because I think by nature, young people are curious. They are always looking for opportunities to find things that they are passionate about. And if they have less restrictions in terms of, being held back by their financial state, I think we'll see a boon for this country. And like you mentioned, the Scandinavian countries, and we're probably getting a good taste of the way the world is operating at this current moment. And
Interesting times, for sure.
yes. And given some of the like publicized shortages that we have, whether it be teachers or doctors, if we snap our fingers and we create institutions that are free for students to go and pursue these opportunities in education, I think that takes care of pretty much all of the problems that we have right now.
Well, and one other interesting sort of perspective, I think, is that, students that are going through thinking grade 12 is the end, that's a different perspective than going through and saying, my potential is limitless, like I can go on from here. And it puts a sort of a different spin, sort of a different environment. Thank you for bringing that up. That was really interesting.
That's something I'm very passionate about.
Okay, so something that you could continue to advocate for as well.
Yes, as a trustee, that would be something that I would at least relay to the provincial government as being very important, and that we need to...
In your position as liaison there.
Yep.
Right? So, okay, so there's some areas that we see that could potentially be changed or improved. What is something that you think School District 43 is doing really well? Is there a policy that you think is very successful right now?
Yeah, like I mentioned, the student services, transition planning, I don't believe that was as prevalent when I graduated, but I've seen it get better with each subsequent, I guess you could say generation or graduation class, because my siblings are younger, so I watched them get more and more opportunities to talk to these teachers and lay out their options, which is a big thing, because I think a lot of times we rely on parents to do that, and parents should always be present in their kids' and students' education. But what if the parents hadn't gone to post-secondary themselves?
You can't assume that's always going to be the case.
So they might not even have the know-how themselves to, take their kids through that process. And so having those in place lately, I feel like has been a huge benefit to the province and to the school district.
Okay, and when you're talking about transition, you're talking about transitioning from high school
Yes,
into
yes, transition planning
post-secondary
into
of some sort.
post-secondary. Yes,
Yeah.
whether it's a college like Douglas or a university
Right.
like Capilano, it's all applications, it's lots
Mm-hmm.
of paperwork, and that itself
Yes.
can be quite daunting. So that's a big thing that I would give credit to SD43 for.
Okay.
They've gotten a lot more of those, and it's gotten a lot better.
And does that even include like technical and trades and?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
Yes.
everything across the board.
Yeah,
Ah.
it's a very important resource for students to have that are looking at the world as young people, as teenagers, and just kind of daunted by everything. And it's a good way to sort
Well,
of
it affects their whole
ground it.
life going forward, right?
Yeah, these are
That's
big
big
decisions
choices.
being made.
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. On sort of the other side of things, can you identify something that you think needs to be improved? Is there a policy that's not working or a policy that needs to be put in place that isn't already there?
Yeah, this I actually feel is more of a language wording sort of thing. So it's policy, I think, number 11 on the Tri-Cities or the Code of Conduct for Students within the school district. It says that no student should be in possession of or under the influence of alcohol and or drugs on school property, which is obviously a great policy. I'm not saying
Right.
to change that. I'm saying to add to it, we need to put nicotine products in there.
Oh,
Vapes
okay.
have taken over schools, and from having been in those education systems and the classrooms, they are far more prevalent than alcohol or drugs, and they are not to be purchased or acquired by children under the age of 19 anyway.
Oh,
So it
right,
should be
okay.
taken as seriously, and I
Right.
don't know why it hasn't been.
Yeah.
At least in my experience at school, there's a lot more kids using nicotine products than there are using alcohol.
That's interesting. And yeah, I would agree with you just from what I've seen as well. So we don't treat those the same as we treat.
At least the
Alcohol and
language on
drugs,
a
yeah.
district-wide level is not to that degree. I'm sure there are specific school policies in place, because it's not as though teachers are advocating for open vaping in the classrooms,
Right. It's
but
not necessarily encouraged, but it's not being
it needs to become policy.
right.
The existing
And
language
then
needs
that
to be
would
expanded.
give teachers more sort of teeth to
Yep.
enforce it.
Yeah, as opposed to relying on even just school by school, right? That's what the district is for, and we need to expand the language of this existing code of conduct.
So to give some support there and some consistency from school to school on the policy as it's being
Yeah,
applied.
that's a big thing for me.
Okay. Now, can you talk to us a little bit about inclusivity? How would you, as a school trustee, ensure that schools are safe places and inclusive places for every child?
Oh, yes. That's a very important question facing today. I think having teachers and counselors being non-judgmental allies is absolutely critical. Giving young people the opportunity to explore themselves and explore identity is invaluable. And honestly, as a young adult myself, there really is no better time than while you are just maturing and growing up and questioning the world around you. We want young people and children to be curious, right? So we have to provide the space for them to explore
Safe
themselves.
space,
Yes, a
yes.
safe space, non-judgmental, very important. Schools, and whether it's like GSAs, are very important. I benefited greatly from having one at my school.
Can you tell us what a GSA is?
Oh yeah, GSA is a Gay Straight Alliance is what it's called. It's sort of a club where, school by school, a club where queer people or LGBT people can get together with allies and people that are supportive of their identities and just exploring that. So as I believe the only LGBT person in this race, I find this to be a very, very personal issue that I am very grateful that SD43 has taken such a strong stance on, and I would like to further that by being the LGBT liaison for the school board.
Okay, so you've given some good examples there of how to make sure that spaces are inclusive. Do you think there's an opportunity for education, like as far as teachers and even students and everybody? Is there an educational aspect that should be part of that?
I think the school district is doing a pretty good job right now. We're all fairly aware of the SOGI integration into the curriculum. And I think that's sort of a misconception as to the education part of that, is that there's not a specific class that's like, oh, it's time for SOGI,
Right.
but it's interwoven into the existing curriculum. So in stuff like sex ed, that we all can agree is important. And the studies have shown that when children are educated both on what it means to be a young person or understand their identity or their body, that they're more likely to report things like abuse in the home or harassment at school, or just general, hate against their type of person. And these are very valuable. This is the benefit of education, is that young people are able to take more agency for themselves.
Right. And I think there have been studies that have shown that the LGBTQ2+ community sometimes feels more isolated than other students, sort of the general student population. So it's really important to integrate, and again, lifelong consequences, right, going forward for everyone.
It's really a way to get young people comfortable with
All
themselves.
young people, whether you're a part of that, no matter who you identify as, right? So
How are you
it's super
supposed
important.
to get through this
Yeah.
crazy world without being comfortable in in your own skin and who you are?
Exactly.
It's foundational to a good education, I think.
And to society.
Yep.
Right? So I just want to carry on with inclusivity a little bit and ask you if you support a sanctuary school policy being in place. Now, New Westminster has one, Surrey has one, School District 43 does not have one, and I'm just curious on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that this was a policy that New West and Surrey had implemented until someone else had brought it up on the campaign, a parent that I was talking to. So I absolutely think that it is quite a unique and beneficial policy that they've implemented. Obviously, I think that asking school boards to tackle an issue as big as, kind of immigration is a big ask, and it's not really on us, but I believe that every child in this country deserves a quality education.
Right?
So it's pertinent that they are given those opportunities, because otherwise, if you are not advocating for this, then what is the result of that? That the children that are in this country illegally have to hide at home all day, and that's no way for anyone to live, let alone a child.
It doesn't benefit them or
No.
us as a society.
So I am in support of that, and if
Okay.
migrants are in this country and taking steps to receive some sort of legal status, their children should absolutely be given the opportunity to get a quality Western education. And so if SD43 is looking to consider these sanctuary school policies, that's something I would support.
Okay, thank you for that. So let's move on and talk a little bit more about stakeholders. You had
Yes.
mentioned a little bit about how your role liaising between different entities. Can you talk about who you think your main stakeholders would be, and also give some indication of how you would make sure that those voices are heard at the table?
Yes, stakeholders, I think students and parents are on top of the list. They're a package deal. We need to hear all perspectives, but then that also goes for the educators themselves. Teachers have to be at the table as well. And we can give teachers all the attention they want, but if we're not listening to what they have to say, where they're saying things that, like, we need smaller class sizes so that they can personalize the education experience more for those students, then that's something that we have to insist on when we're advocating to higher levels of government, the needs of the community, especially given the recent rate of growth we've seen across the Tri-Cities and that is being pushed by the provincial government. We need to be able to demand and ask for these opportunities for higher budgets, for more schools to be built. Those are pretty much key, I think, in giving young people the best chance to succeed.
Thank you for that. And you've sort of moved into a little bit into talking about funding and resources. So can we talk about that some more?
Yeah.
One of your roles is, of course, to advocate for funding and resources.
Yep.
And I'm wondering what sort of resources do you think we need, and where do you start?
Yeah, well, money is a big topic. Everyone's looking for it now. As a young person, I know, I know the struggle there.
It's tough.
So one thing I actually would give huge ups to Coquitlam for is I thought that the model that went in with Pine Tree was quite exceptional. So that's something that I would advocate for, which is this like hybrid between a school and like a recreation center development.
Oh,
I always
okay.
wondered about this when I went to school too, because I would like leave, go home, and these like 3 gymnasiums, weight room, mat room are just left unattended,
Right.
just sitting completely vacant for more than half the day.
Underusing.
Why, I don't, like, I would go so far as to say I don't think a new school should be built in the city until that option is fully explored for every single development, because with this growing like population that we have, we need more education spaces, we need more recreation spaces, and if the city is able to provide, and we can enter into partnerships with them to
Right.
build these spaces that are more inclusive of the community and not just places for students that will cease to function after a certain time of day, that I think should be explored for every development.
Really interesting concept. So go into partnership with the city to have like a school, an educational area, plus using those spaces for community, recreation as well as
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah, that's something
Okay.
I think.
Thank you.
Like I said, Pine Tree's the only
Yes.
example I can even really think of that does this. Like Centennial, I guess, might be close, but they have separate buildings as well. They have the pavilion and the school, so it's not quite connected.
Right, up on Poirier.
Yeah.
Yes.
So here, that's something I think, like whether it's you are having the school, some classrooms maybe a second floor
Right.
and have the ground floor so that there is a separation, or like Pine Tree where they're the same building, but there's those doors that can be like locked when it's on and off hours so that students are able to access it, and then after it just opens to the public. That would be, I think, a way to
Oh,
potentially get some
Yeah, an
additional
interesting
revenue in the school
concept.
district and benefit all the people that live in Coquitlam at the same time.
What do you think about Coquitlam has an international student program? Do you think, would you like to see that expanded or changed, or how would you like to see that addressed?
I actually think that will work somewhat in tandem with the budget and the monetary issues that we're talking about. I looked at their website recently, and it's the second bullet point on their website is advertising or bragging, I guess, about our state-of-the-art modern schools. So I think it is invaluable to have this education program here, so perhaps it should be expanded even more so. But we do need those schools first.
Right.
If they're going to tell everyone in the world about how
Right.
amazing our schools are, we need to have
We
enough.
need to be using them too.
We need to have lots.
Okay.
And with the pace of development, that we need to keep everything growing at the same pace. So yes, more international students, which should mean more schools, which should mean perhaps more recreation spaces for the adults in the city as well. If we're all working together, I think that we won't see that one outpace the other, and then we'll be left behind without enough classrooms, or be rise in portables, which is already an issue. So I think it all has to work together. Like, let's support our international students too.
Right.
But they're coming here to use our schools, so let's make sure the schools are ready for them.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Now, just before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to talk about?
Well, thank you, Nancy. It's been a great little chat. Yeah, I have a couple things I'd like to mention that are more specific to my campaign as opposed to other candidates in the race, just to distinguish myself a little bit more. I'd like to see the option for ASL learning explored, perhaps as an alternative to French in some degree.
So you're talking about sign language?
Yes, I
Yeah.
think that opportunities for students to build upon their already existing knowledge of the English language by giving them opportunities to learn how to further communicate with, people that,
Yeah, with the hearing impaired
Yeah, the
community.
hearing
and
impaired.
Yeah.
I think that
Okay.
would be a really great opportunity.
That's something I haven't heard come up before. So, yeah, great initiative.
Yeah, I just found that, like, being an adult navigating the spaces that I'm in, at
Yeah.
least here in, British Columbia and the West Coast,
Right.
I have found myself more often having to communicate with people that are hearing impaired in my day-to-day life than I have had, use for
Right.
French in my own personal life.
Okay,
It's
no,
not,
it's a good
not that it's
point.
invaluable, and it is mandatory already for certain grades.
Right.
So perhaps exploring the option for middle schoolers where it's required grades 6 to 8. So,
Okay.
because I know that I wasn't so keen on it, and I would have loved the opportunity to build on my existing skill set, because they're always looking for people that know sign language. I can't tell you how many like international news stories have arose because of people lying about it and then going out there and doing some, crap,
Right.
which is unintelligible.
No,
but
that's true. No,
this
that's
basic thing would even open doors for work opportunities.
Right.
Just having that base knowledge, I think, would actually be really beneficial to the interconnectivity of the community.
awesome. Thank you for that.
And the other big thing in my campaign is the awareness about AI, or artificial intelligence, in the community.
That's the elephant in the room, isn't it?
Yes, and given what I've said about the average age of school boards in this province,
Right.
I don't know if we are fully ready for the wave that's coming, because it's already here. I had a great conversation with a parent last week where they talked about bringing their kids to Science World,
Right.
and they had a course or a workshop on AI, and they asked this classroom full of kids 8 to 13 years old, who is familiar with AI? And all their hands go up. And then the instructor asked, what do you use it for? And they all exclaimed at the same time, homework.
Yes.
So we need to reevaluate the relationship that students have with homework in the school, and that starts with the smaller class sizes, because if teachers can personalize the education experience more, the amount of take-home work is reduced, and we should save that time for, the more like flashy things, like the projects, not just paperwork or writing an essay. If you have to write a 500-word essay on Egypt, don't take it home and type into ChatGPT 500-word essay on Egypt.
Right.
Go to your school library, take out a book, and write that essay, maybe even in front of the teacher.
Right.
Or because kids are taking photos of times tables on their phones and getting the answers instantly. And
No,
we have to stop that.
We do, and there's so much more that could be done in that area. And as you say, go use your library. So
We have the resources.
We do. I just want to thank you so much for coming in and talking to us today. We covered a lot of territory.
Yeah, we did.
And just wish you all the best in the upcoming election.
Thank you very much.
So thanks for joining us today. You've been watching We've Got Issues, and Nash Milani has been with us this afternoon talking about his run for School District 43 School Trustee. Thank you.